Big 10 Plus 4 is a member of Odd Pods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network.
What is going on? And welcome into Big 10 Plus 4 for another week's edition of the show. Again, we're college sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood. I'm Dalton Shetler. That's Sam Sprunger. Sam, how are we doing today?
Allergies suck.
Fair enough. So do mosquitoes. That's this time too.
Yeah, well, they're just getting their start, Dalton. We're just starting to get the warm weather here in the Midwest to where it's constantly a little bit warmer. But I tell you what, the place I live, and I'm sure you run into this once in a while on days that you leave a little bit later in the day or whatever, and the sun's been able to come out and maybe a little bit of wind. You get out in your car and it looks like you've been dusted by something, and then you run your wipers and that's just all the pollen that's on your windshield from it. Oh my goodness. And as I've gotten older, I've started to get more allergic, I guess, maybe. And maybe it's because I just moved not too long ago, so I'm introduced to some more different types of things or whatever. But my eyes are like watering. I wake up and every once in a while and they're matted shut, and it's just, I'm like, what in the I hate allergies.
So we have here in our backyard, in our outdoor area, we have, as you're rubbing your eyes right now, for folks on audio,
yeah.
But we have a hot tub in our backyard, and the cover is like a dark brown color. But this time of the year, it turns like that light brown, greenish,
pale yellow.
Just there's a layer, just a blanket of pollen laying on top of that. So I know exactly what you mean. Thank gosh I don't feel your pain.
I was gonna say,
I get it.
Do you suffer from any allergies? Excuse me.
As I always tell a doctor, not that I'm aware of. We might find out soon, but not that I'm aware of.
That's what I've always said, but now I'm going to have to say, I think I go through seasonal allergy stuff.
Yep. Not fun.
It's not. Well, thank goodness I don't have it the way some people do. Like if that pollen kicks up or if mold or whatever kicks up, people are, like struggle with it. And I'm been blessed not to have that, but I'm starting to get the old watery, goopy eyes, snoot full of whatever going on. And if you hear me sniffing, you know it's allergy season.
And by the way, you said allergies suck, and I said so do mosquitoes. That's a very literal pun. So
I was going to say that was a double meaning to that comment. There. I liked it.
Anyways, as we get into some sports,
is this a sports show or an allergy show?
Well, with this being the time of the year, it means we're getting close to June, and what June means is June 1st, that a lot of the college basketball players in Big Ten, specifically for our show's interest, have to make their decision if they're going to stay in the NBA draft or come back. Now, we've started to see some news of players already making their decisions, and one is hugely going to alter the Big Ten conference for next year. That's Trayce Jackson-Davis at Indiana. He's back as a Hoosier. And really as a leader. In his Zoom press conference that he had with the media, you got to hear him talk, and he was very, very transparent and candid in that availability. It's something that you should check out because he's very, very honest in it. But he's back, and so is Indiana, much to the demise. As you can already see, Sam's a little bit more pale, and he's got the allergies going on. But the announcement of Indiana basketball being back does not help.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Really?
You know what? Yeah, because you know what? There have been times, and yes, it's different coach, different, but IU, you know what I mean? So like since the general has done left, they've been so inconsistent in what they've done. I mean, so I will. Mike Woodson had a great first year in the standards of IU in recent IU history.
Right.
He has done well his first year. Well, let's see what happens when you get year 2, year 3. I just the Big Ten is going to be a better conference when IU's better. I know that. I'm not naive or stupid enough to think differently. I just love to hate them. So that's why I'm always bagging on them. But I'm not silly enough to think that I don't understand that when they're good, the Big Ten conference is good because of it.
Well, and I was going to say a little furthermore, again, with my allegiances being with Michigan State, my interest there, Michigan, the team that we don't really get to or are too fond of, that team's going to be right there at the top of the Big Ten, and I think it's with Indiana right now.
And that's what I was getting ready to say is I think IU and Michigan are going to be your top two that are going to be your front runners. Like last year at the beginning before it was Michigan and Purdue that they were kind of talking about. Nobody was talking Wisconsin. Somebody, the talk of Illinois being competitive was there.
Yes.
But basically this year it's going to be Michigan and IU are going to be those teams that they are our front runners. So
yes.
I just when Purdue raises the trophy next year, that can just rub the salt in the wound of IU fans, right?
So is that your actual prediction? No. I was going to say.
No. Well, you know what? Even if they said Purdue would be 10th, the writers, I mean, Wisconsin set the precedence that's not necessary. Those aren't set in stone. So
right. No, you're not wrong. But in Michigan, that's a big one that kind of is waiting a little bit on that June 1st deadline because you have Moussa Diabate, you have Caleb Houston. Are the
any
time
of those guys going to come back, do you think?
Well, so this is, and I should be honest too, just in case this is released at a time later than when we're recording and we didn't have the news in front of us when it happened. But Diabate and Houston right now are getting ready or they're in the combine. They're getting ready for the draft and still have their decision to be made as of now. And Diabate, the way he scaled out in terms of measurements, a lot of his athleticism, his vitals, I think really impressed a lot of the scouts. So I think his stock went up since he started to flirt with this whole thing. And I checked a mock draft not that long ago, and they had Caleb Houston late first-round draft pick as well. So, those two might be gone.
He's one of those, though, or that's a placement late in the first round that if you're just wanting to play in the NBA and get in there as soon as possible, that's one you accept.
Yep.
But if he's like, no, I'm better than that, you go back to school for another year and get that draft stock up more. It's just a matter of knowing his personal choice. That's one of those that, okay, we're not really sure, what's going on. Yeah, I think he could, he might surprise somebody and come back. I don't know.
No, that's very possible. The Diabate, though, I think he's, with the way that he measured out in a lot of different aspects, I almost
is he fringe lottery now, or is he still in the late first round?
I think he might still be around there.
Okay, well, depends on him too. Then on like his personal choice too.
Yeah,
get those years of service in right away or whatever, and grind it out, developing in the NBA rather than at college. I don't know.
And it looks like, again, physically, he has the capability to develop in the NBA. Some guys are too small when they test the waters to really be able to truly develop. He's kind of ready to develop, if that makes sense.
He's got the frame there. He just needs to build it around it.
But Michigan still, regardless, does bring back Hunter Dickinson and still brings back some other pieces and brings in some freshmen like Juwan Howard's kid. Michigan, regardless, is going to be something to be dealt with. And then for Indiana, we talked about Trace Jackson Davis coming back. Of course, Race Thompson's back. Xavier Johnson, that guard, is back. That really played well towards the end of last year. And then you talk about a great recruiting class coming in for the Hoosiers as well, with Jalen Hood-Schifino, Malik Renault. I don't know. I don't know if you can give it this treatment this time, Sam.
No, I'm giving that treatment. Okay.
Look, I have the last 6 years kind of, I wouldn't say laugh, but I've looked over at that Indiana roster and I'm like, okay. This year, it's a little bit different. They have a squad in a year, again, where we need to let the listeners know here too. the Big Ten's due for a down year. It appears it's and by down,
And we
that
talked
doesn't.
about this, I think, off air, like not this week, but we've talked about it in the past weeks that we think that.
Yeah, and by down, it doesn't necessarily mean abysmal or anything, but we're talking about the Big Ten getting maybe 4 or 5 lottery picks in this year's NBA draft.
Yeah.
Like, that hasn't been a thing. Like, a lot of the top talent is gone, and there is this big vacuum to be filled. And Indiana, with Trace Jackson Davis coming back out of the NBA draft, is sitting there saying, we can take it. We can fill this vacuum.
When was the last time, and you would probably know this a little bit more than me, the last time that the Big Ten provided 3 lottery picks? Do you have any idea? Because I'm racking my brain of 90s, early 2000s, and I'm not remembering any.
I'm trying to think as well, and I don't have an answer. I know this is something I wanted to look up not that long ago.
Yeah.
And
because here's the thing. The Big Ten struggles in their postseason, but they always kind of just have good teams. It's not always the player. I mean, there's obviously always players. You have Luka Garza and all, I mean, in most recent history, but like E21 Moore, Purdue, I mean, Winston at Michigan State. Those players that are really, really good, but they don't necessarily translate into the NBA. Okay. So like they're really good college players, but they're role players when they hit the NBA. When was the last time the Big Ten had more than one lottery pick? Which means those are picks that are transcendent players potentially that could turn into great players. I don't recall.
I'm taking a look at some of the recent NBA drafts. Last year, the Big Ten had one lottery pick, and it was Franz Wagner from Michigan,
okay,
who went on to have a great season,
right?
In his rookie year this year. You go back to 2020, and the only lottery pick, just one again, was Jalen Smith from Maryland.
Yeah.
2019. I'm just going to keep backing up until we can find multiple.
Yeah.
2019. One lottery pick, Romeo Langford from Indiana. He went in at number 14.
So he was the last draft. Pick of the lottery.
And then you had in 2018, Jaren Jackson Jr. went from Michigan State and Miles Bridges went from Michigan State. So the Spartans had 2 in the lottery in 18, but nobody else. Because I remembered that draft, but I couldn't remember if anybody else got in there, and they did not.
I'm just trying to think of the fact that the Big Ten has 4 lottery picks. Like that's where they're projecting 4 players to be picked. In some mock drafts you see more.
Yep.
You see a 5th, but solidly there are 4 lottery picks, and that's a huge amount.
17, the Big Ten didn't have a lottery pick. 16, they had 1. It was Denzel Valentine from Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We might have multiple here. We got multiple, but not 3 yet. The 2015 draft, Deangelo Russell went number 2 from Ohio State. Now it's going to be fun because we're going to find some names that we haven't heard for a while, like
right.
Kaminsky at number 9 in the 2015 draft.
Why
not?
About that on here. He's a White
I don't
Sox.
Remember.
He's a White Sox fan at 1.
Oh, that's right.
And then when the Cubs in 16 were winning the World Series, he went to Twitter and I don't like him.
The 2014 draft at number 8, Nick Stauskas was selected from Michigan. Number 9, Noah Vonleh from Indiana. Number 15, so kind of just on the outside, Adreian Payne, which of course, the late Adreian Payne, now some tragic news just a week or so ago. That's oof. But let's keep moving down this rabbit hole.
That is rough. That's that was a horrible situation.
Yeah. We could spend some time on it, and I suppose
am I correct? Adreian Payne was the one that had the special relationship with the girl that was sick,
Princess Lacey.
Yes. Okay, and that just makes it even more heartbreaking.
And I mean, if since we're here, and I
Yeah.
don't mean to down the show, but
and
we'll spend
we
a
don't have
moment
to
on it.
spend a lot of time on it, but it is worth mentioning. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a story that was a big deal.
And Adreian Payne, somebody who was diagnosed with a learning disability back in high school, came across a school administrator, Dr. Richard Gates, who essentially changed his life. Basically, shared why learning and spending effort and trying in the classroom matters, and it completely changed Adreian Payne's mindset and life. And so then he started really attacking school, and he ended up graduating. And of course, this is somebody too who lost his mother when he was like a teenager. She died right in front of him. I mean, the guy's story is just filled with so much heartbreak and adversity, and then he found a way to overcome it all, and then he gives back with Princess Lacey, and then this happens where he's called by a friend to try and break up a domestic spat to try and help out, and he ends up being shot. I mean, it's absolutely gutting. It really is. It's gutting. It's really hard to kind of go over, because it's a tough deal. There's a lot of people still really hurting in the community about it.
And you were the one I wanted to talk to about it, at least bring it up in at least a little bit of a conversation, because you have that connection with Michigan State. Now, you weren't around
when he was playing here. No,
he was,
but I've talked with him.
Correct. And so you still have that finger on the pulse there in East Lansing of kind of how that was just a shocker,
People are really, really hurt. Like, talking with some people recently, I mean, they're still, it's going to take a little while to recover.
I was going to say, something is a wonderful story such as his was, the adversity, working through the adversity, that touches a lot of lives, and so then when something tragic like this happens, then it sends shockwaves rather than ripples,
Yeah. And then, I mean, the only solace you try and take is that he and Princess Lacey being reunited again.
Yep. Which is cool. I can remember, and if our listeners don't recall, I believe this, did she have cancer? Okay. And it was a real young girl, probably 4 or 5, maybe, and not very old at the time that she was, or that he was.
I think a little bit older than that.
Maybe a little. Okay. But like, I don't know how they got connected, though. That's the one thing I have a question of. But she became basically his mascot, or not his mascot, but his buddy, his sidekick.
Yes.
Throughout the tournament. Well, it was the season, but like, it was even more blown up during the tournament, and the tournament run that
Michigan it started to get media recognition.
Yeah. And it was just a heartwarming connection between this big man, just embracing this young, girl, and they loved each other and were absolute best friends with one another.
And it was genuine. It wasn't for the cameras.
Correct,
it was an authentic relationship. And it just,
Well, and you can tell that it wasn't just put on for the cameras because of, unless they were really highly paid actors, neither of them could hide that was a genuine love and appreciation of one another. It was just, if you have time, look that up and find that, because that story, that connection between those two was an amazing connection.
And they still do some special stuff around that at Michigan State, like Laces for Lacey. They'll have certain games. They do different events because
they wear like pink laces because
they're yellow glittery.
Oh, okay. Those are pretty cool too. Then.
Yeah, I got a pair.
I would too if I was around. Oh yeah.
But so I don't know in between all that if we've done any justice to the story, but just check out Adreian Payne's story. It's
that was unintended topic there, because we were just talking about the lottery, but that was I meant to actually bring that up, in our pre-show meeting to see if we wanted to talk about it, and unintentionally we got to it anyway. So but to get back onto the topic that we were talking about,
Well, I got an update for you if you want to start talking lottery again.
Yeah, could do that.
I found the last time the Big Ten had 3 lottery picks in the NBA draft. You have to go back to 2013. Victor Oladipo was picked 2nd from Indiana. Cody Zeller was picked 4th from Indiana. And you had Trey Burke at number 9 from Michigan. And also you had Alex Len from Maryland, but Maryland wasn't in the Big Ten Conference at that time. So we can't count that. Yeah. But nonetheless, you had 3 there. So 2013 is the last time. And this year, it looks like
shocked that it was that. I don't remember that. But let's think about how many of those lottery picks did we hear that are actually like household names now?
From right there?
From that list, that we just went through. Oladipo?
I was going to say he's still with the Heat. He's in the playoffs.
Right. But like he's... And I hate saying that, somebody that gets a big contract, but like that kind of is a sign that they're at least a, mid to high or a high mid tier player, right? If they get a big contract.
Right.
So you got Eric Gordon, Eric Gordon, right?
Victor Oladipo's this draft.
Right. But I'm thinking out loud, like that I know of Big
Ten guys
that have done that. And Eric Gordon and
Draymond
Green.
Draymond wasn't a lottery pick, but he got a big contract.
I mean, and so like my whole point is like the Big Ten doesn't ever always, they don't have multiple lottery picks. And when you get rid of that many lottery picks, you're set up for a down year, at least the next year, and maybe a couple more years straight.
Yeah, there's certainly a vacuum with talent in the Big Ten, and that's why I keep saying Indiana's sitting there like, hey, we brought all ours back, and we're adding some. So Indiana's in a good position.
Let's just say maybe they weren't as good as what you thought they were, and that's why they came back. There's my jab at IU. How about that? Maybe they aren't as good as you think they are.
By the way, that 2013 draft was historically bad. That's the one Anthony Bennett went number 1.
The worst number 1 pick. Even over Michael Olowokandi back in the day.
Let's see. You had Otto Porter Jr. going 3, Nerlens Noel 6, Ben McLemore 7, Kentavious Caldwell Pope 8, CJ McCollum 10. That's a good pick. Michael Carter
1
Williams
out of 10
11.
ain't bad.
Yeah, literally. Steven Adams 12, Kelly Olynyk 13, Shabazz Muhammad 14.
Here's the thing: you can't necessarily go by name recognition because like some people have just like I know Nerlens Noel because of his name.
Right.
There wasn't much that he did in the NBA, and he might still be on a roster. I don't know, but he ain't making news. So, yeah.
So we've ripped through just about the entire lottery of that draft. You know who was number 15 in that draft?
Oh, good Lord. Steph Curry. No, I know that's not right. I'm just
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, what was it? They said, I saw something on social media that said the Bucks could have, without trading, drafted Luka Doncic. Is it Doncic?
Yep.
Yeah. Luka Doncic, Jokic, and Giannis all on the team at the same time. If they would have drafted, they had picks before those other 2 went and could have taken both of them.
That's incredible.
Can you think about what that team would be?
They'd still be playing right now.
Well, yeah, that or 2 of those would still be on the team, and one would have reaped a lot of benefit from trade, value and stuff. They'd have more than one title probably.
But yeah, that's a interesting trip down NBA draft history here recently with the Big Ten, because and the Big Ten is primed to have a big one because you're going to have. Well, actually, I'll save it because it's going to be involved with our Twitter poll a little bit later on in the show. We'll talk about what's coming up for the Big Ten. To be
continued. Dun, dun, dun.
So let's shift from the hardwood to the gridiron and go to the second quarter.
See how long we've been recording?
I know. Finally, we get our first break in.
How's that? Yeah. Hey. Run a little long.
All right, so we want to move over to Big Ten football for a moment because with all this talk about divisions and maybe scrapping divisions, because now the NCAA's came out and said conferences can do that. It's up to the conference. And the Pac-12 has already done so. I believe the ACC has already done so. And at the time of this recording, the Big Ten has not yet. However, there's a little bit of hubbub around that in the Big Ten Conference with some of the administrators and somebody who really, I love this is what reporting is in 2022 is somebody was looking up all the teams in the conference future schedules and noticed they got pulled down from their website. So that's hinting at a big change structurally for Big Ten football. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I am angry that the NCAA made this rule.
Why?
I am angry because this just means Purdue will never make it to the Big Ten championship game. Ever. They're never going to be 11-1 with their only loss being to a good team. Ever. That's not me discounting what Purdue does. They always are. 9-3 is a great season.
Mm-hmm.
If Purdue went 10-2, it'd be like, oh my God, do you remember that 2020 or that 22-23 team? Oh goodness.
Something you talk about for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Purdue has never and will never play in the Big Ten championship game. I'm going to put on books. And then when that actually happens, somebody can bring up this archived stuff and say, what are you talking about? Well, you know what? I was tempting fate is what I was doing.
Yeah.
It's either going to be a true prophecy or I have got a brighter day in my future.
The win-win.
Yeah. So,
but I
can't accidentally walk into the Big Ten championship game is what I'm saying. They can't back into it because Wisconsin lost to Minnesota in the last week.
Well, and it's interesting too because and we have the graphic done by Fox Sports, the Fox Sports College Football Twitter account put together and did the research of what Big Ten championship games would have looked like this whole time without division. So if we splatter that up right there, thank you, Sam.
Yes, sir.
You can see the differences throughout. One thing that really stuck out to me was 2020 Northwestern still would have been in that Big Ten title game against Ohio State. That was
I was
the COVID
looking
year.
through this. There's only like 3 that would have been different.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is, go ahead.
2012,
2016.
I'm sorry, 4 times. 2018 and 2021.
And so Michigan fans must be celebrating at this point because they've been to 1 now. But if you scrap divisions, Michigan would have been in 3 different Big Ten title games.
Yeah.
So you imagine it's a happy day for the Wolverines.
Look at all that Ohio State all over the place.
Well, that's what's really interesting to me too. So if we count there on that left side, games with the divisions, you had Ohio State with 6 Big Ten championship game appearances. If we were to scrap divisions, Ohio State would be in 8 of the Big Ten title game appearances. Like that's remarkable. That's also, what Ohio State is. And so Ohio State's happy about this too, because they are truly just about the best team year in, year out, as it's showing there on the right side of the screen. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to have a chance to prove that in a championship game, assuming that we end up in a spot where there's no divisions anymore in Big Ten football.
I think it's probably the safest assumption that you could make. Honestly, I think that would be a safe assumption that it's going to be gone. It's not gonna remain in place when it's not necessary. The Big Ten doesn't do a ton to set the pace, but they're quick to follow. And that's not necessarily a ding on them. They just don't, they just don't tend to be the one to start something, but they're quick to say, okay, yeah, we kind of like this. I don't think it's much of a limb to go out on to say that the Big Ten won't have divisions maybe after this season. Because I assume that they're going to have to play this year in division, and then after that, they'll get rid of it as quickly as others. Not as quickly as the Pac-12, deciding 10 minutes after the guideline came out or the ruling came out. All right, we're done.
Yep. No, you are not wrong. And it should be noted, too, that those other two conferences, the Pac-12 and the ACC that we talked about a little bit ago, those are the other two in the alliance with the Big Ten. Usually those three stay uniform in whatever they're doing. So,
and that should be even more telling, I think.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean they need to. Like, I don't think there's any, like, when the alliance gets together, I don't think they're like, hey, we all need to make sure we have the exact same schedule format for this. I don't think that's...
Get rid of them divisions now.
Right. Like, I don't think that's really one of the pressing concerns or something that they're with.
Do you like your kneecaps?
Why don't you get rid of those divisions?
Get rid of them divisions and you can keep them. No, it's one of those. Honestly, I see benefit in divisions because you can keep them divided. The scheduling will lend to those are your permanent conference games or whatever. But there is no equality in the value of the divisions. I mean, you look at the West always in the Big Ten, it's always, well, Wisconsin's going to be good. Who else is going to push them? And in the East, it's, well, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. That there's been a couple of seasons IU's been the talk in there.
Penn State. Like, it's a stacked East. So they might that's probably why I see they're getting rid of divisions. But they could keep them just for that. These are our permanent conference games. And there's still talk even about if you do scrap divisions to protect certain games, certain rivalries.
Well, you've got those geographical, location, maybe a little closer for traveling or whatever. If they have a trophy, we talked about that a few weeks back. Honestly, those should be protected. Like, you have a history. If you have a trophy other than the broken chair bits and pieces, $5 or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know remember what game that was for, but even though that's a new one, most of them have a history, so there's got to be some sort of connection. I know the Purdue and Illinois play for a cannon. Well, there's a reason why they play for a cannon. Let's keep that in to where they play. Michigan and Michigan State is a natural geographical rivalry anyway, but you guys play for a trophy. Purdue and IU play for a trophy, so those need to be protected.
Show that trophy again? That's sitting in East.
What is that? It's an awful small trophy there. Who is that?
Anytime we get a chance to show Paul Bunyan, that's
right. Well, if you look directly over my hat, you can see my bottle of Jim Beam. That's from it's my Game 7 batch Jim Beam there.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, there's a lot of Cubs memorabilia.
And right above, right next to it, that is an official batting helmet signed by Dexter Fowler, who hit the leadoff home run in Game 7.
Wow.
So, but that bottle, that Jim Beam, it matured on the day that the Cubs won the World Series. So that's why it's called Game 7 batch.
Do you ever open that?
Two reasons why I haven't. I don't drink anymore, Dalton. But the main reason is the seal has to. The only thing that mentions Game 7 batch by name is the seal that seals the cap shut. So it will never be broken on my dime.
I was going to say, so as long as Sam Sprunger grazes the earth, that bottle does not open.
As long as I have possession of that bottle, it will not be open. It shouldn't be opened ever, but it will not while it's in my possession.
Very good. Very good. Just curious.
Yeah.
I do want to get back to
got a little off topic there. Sorry.
Hey, it always happens. But
you started it with the trophy.
You're right. But talking about some of those protected games, that also does bring into question too, because we're talking about what games you protect. Well, one of them would have to be Michigan and Ohio State that you have to protect. But one of the concerns that people are throwing out there on social media, a lot of people want to see that game now, if you do get rid of divisions, taken away from being the final week of the regular season and taken away from that tradition just because of the risk of playing back-to-back. playing there at the end of the regular season and then playing in the Big Ten title game. You're already throwing your hands up. You're upset with this one.
Nope. You run that risk. You know what? Back when it was still the BCS and Michigan and Ohio State were 1-2 in the polls and played a phenomenal game against one another. Ohio State won by 7, and it was back and forth. Michigan had the ball at the end of the game near the goal line. Like it was down to that point. Okay. People were saying, oh my gosh, well, we've got to have that next week. Or is this the championship game? It ended up not being the championship game, but that was a legit conversation. And if it's that good of a game to where it needs to be a rematch the next week, so be it. Rematches are nothing, because what it does is it takes people off that the first game isn't, or the second game isn't as good as the first game or whatever. But I don't care. Give me good football. So if that rivalry ends the season and one of the teams isn't in the top 2, guess what? There ain't no rematch the next week. So you want Michigan and Ohio State to move their traditional, because you don't want back-to-back weeks. Suck it up, okay, Buttercup? It's going to happen once in a while, and it might happen more than not. Well,
I got a couple of things I want to do here. And Sam, if you can throw that graphic back up to just
tell me what to do,
for a
Dalton.
quick point. I said if you could. That was a rather.
Oh, this is the most polite demand I've ever heard in my life.
Thank you for throwing that up. But if you take a look, you on that right side in Big Ten title games without divisions since 2011, only 2 times would it have been Ohio State and Michigan playing. So from what we've seen in the last decade now, of course, Michigan seems to be trending upwards a little bit. Maybe they're able to kind of stay up towards the top.
Blind squirrel finds a nut, Dalton, every once in a while.
But we're talking about in an instance where you've had 11 Big Ten title games, only twice would that have come into play. And then second off, and you can do away with the graphic now, Sam. I'm done with it. Thank you so much. See, also very respectful manners. But second off, you had Alabama and Georgia this last year playing the SEC championship game that Alabama won. And a couple of games later, they rematch in the national title game, and it was phenomenal. Nobody was upset that they had to play again. Everybody was looking forward to it because they're 2 of the best teams. I'd rather see that than see teams that you're just kind of throwing into the mix or to just stay away from those games. So we've seen that. We saw it at the end of this last year. The last football game we have to work with was a rematch, and it was epic. So I understand maybe how somebody like kind of reads it and they're like, I think it should move, but it's not that big of a deal as proven last year.
Well, that graphic you put up there, or that you had me put up there, just says it all to me, because you're talking about totally, completely revamping something that's happened traditionally the week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because of twice in the past 11 years, it would have meant a rematch of the previous week's game.
Yep.
Tough. It happens in the NFL where teams will end their season against the same team that they play in the first round of the wild card the next week. It happens. It doesn't happen all the time, and that to me says, well, they're always the 2 best teams. No, they haven't always been the 2 best teams.
Correct. Oh, Ohio State has.
Well, I'm saying, but I'm using.
I know what you meant.
There are 2 teams in this that are being brought up the subject, and only twice did both of those teams end up in the championship game.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I just wanted to kind of point again to Ohio State being 8 for 11 in these top 2 in the Big Ten Conference.
But it just ticks me off that we're gonna change things simply because it might be inconvenient for a very small amount of people for a very small amount of time. That's not the way to operate, people. It is not.
And what I find interesting too with this division conversation, and we can wrap up after this one, is I feel fairly nuanced, which doesn't do great for sports talk under About the idea of divisions. I kind of like the idea of, you win a division and you get an opportunity then because you won something to go play in a championship game. Like I enjoy that idea. That
Does it bother you
win.
that teams get into the playoff by not winning and still not winning their
Yes, very
conference?
much so.
So you were upset
not
that
exclusively though. So
okay,
go ahead.
So like Georgia last year, even though they didn't win the conference, they should have been in the playoff.
Yes, 1,000,000,000,000%.
Okay,
Georgia proved all year they were the best team.
I was gonna say, and we even talked about that when it was around, or when we started it up too. But I'm kind of in the same. That's why I think they need to expand it out to at least to 8 teams, so you can have those conference champions and then the wild cards in there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
you got to have automatic qualifiers. Well, you don't have to, as we're proving now, but it would make more sense because you go back to what
it would take a lot of people complaining off the board.
You're right. I think I think it was 2016 where Penn State won the Big Ten, didn't get to go to the playoff, but Ohio State did. That's where I kind of have a problem is when
that's a big problem.
Yeah, not that you didn't win the conference. Like the SEC gets 2 teams in last year, totally fine, understood.
Right.
But in a year where the conference champ doesn't go in, but somebody else from that conference does, it doesn't quite sit right. So that's kind of where
the best team in the conference doesn't necessarily win the championship. When you only have 4 spots, it should be the conference champion.
And you play to win.
You play to win the game.
Like, I mean, if we're just going to do this all on paper and just say, hey, they got a lot of talent, well, then why are we playing the season? Let's just pick our 4 now. Let's pick Bama. Let's, you know what I mean? Like,
because everybody would have had Cincinnati in their top 4 last year at the beginning of the year, right?
Right.
And you know what? Just say what you will. The fact that they got roughed up by Alabama, they deserve to be there. They did everything in their. They tried to bolster their schedule as well as they could. Who would have known that Notre Dame wasn't going to be as big of a win? And same with IU.
Notre Dame still was a big win, though.
It was what they hung their hat on. It was their benchmark. But they thought maybe IU would be a booster to it, and stuff like that. But other than that, they did what they needed to do, and they did a good job. They were deserving of where they ended up. But if we don't play it out the season, Cincinnati doesn't make it.
And let's not act like the 4th team that gets in usually doesn't get absolutely annihilated, whether it be Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, just destroyed. Like what we've seen on a consistent basis now, it hasn't been absolute because the first playoff, Ohio State was the 4 seed and they won
the title.
But in recent years, like we've had 3 really great, stellar, epic teams in there, which makes me glad that we're not in the BCS because a lot of these 3-seeded teams are very well deserving to be playing on this stage as well. But we've seen in recent years the 4 seed, like we don't have a 4th team that matches the caliber of those 3. So it's not Cincinnati's fault. They're just not. There's nobody else you could have.
They were the best of the rest.
Yeah, there's nobody else you could have thrown in that spot that would have done much better. I mean, we've been for years now 3 teams at a different level than everybody else.
And I can tell you, Cincinnati held their own. I mean, they held pretty well against. I mean, they lost by 18 or something like that. I mean, it was a 3-score game, but it was that by all intents and purposes, they should have had their doors blown off of them.
It's no worse than what Notre Dame and Oklahoma have done year in, year out there in the playoffs.
Let's think about the last time Notre Dame and Alabama, did they play again in the playoffs here recently?
They played in 20.
Okay. And Alabama blew the doors off of Notre Dame, didn't they?
Notre Dame covered, so they beat them down pretty bad, but the spread was a pretty high number.
Okay, well, that's not fair to say they covered.
They covered.
A 20-point underdog getting beat by 19 is a win.
It was something like that, though.
It's a win, but good Lord, it's still bad.
I'm going to try finding this. And then, of course, 2019, you had Oklahoma getting beat down by, I think LSU was up, 49-0 at halftime?
something like that. It was like 28-0, like 6 minutes into the game. I mean, not really, but like they handled them.
So, all right, I found it. So the spread going into it was 19.5.
And they lost by 19.
They lost by 17, 31-14 the final.
Okay. So they covered but still got beat by 3 scores. That's not
Correct.
even a no. Cuz I'm guessing Cincinnati covered then if that's the case.
Let me try finding that real quick too.
My whole point, but you're right. There's just been a long string of 3 dynamite teams cuz if you remember Georgia was number 3 last year.
Right.
It was Alabama, Michigan, Georgia. So like you only have the BCS. Georgia doesn't even play for the national title.
All right, so I found it already.
Okay.
Yes, and great point too. I was listening subconsciously, but yes, you're right. That's why every system so far has had flaws, but I'm glad we're away from the BCS so that we can see stuff like that.
The BCS was a dumpster fire.
So the spread heading was 13 between Bama and Cincinnati.
Oh, so they didn't even. So you took an example of Notre Dame covering the spread and getting beat by almost the same amount of points as Cincinnati.
Well, but hold on. So Bama won 27-6. So it's a 21.
Oh, it was a
21
margin. Point. Sorry.
So that changes things a little bit.
Still
the
only 3
goalpost has
scores.
shifted. It's true.
Still only
it's
3
true.
scores.
Anywho, all right, we've run long as we typically do. So let's go ahead. Let's hit the halftime break.
Yes, sir. You are listening to Big 10 Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
I'm Richie, a.k.a. Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, a.k.a. Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros Podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
Music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
Hi, I'm Sam.
I'm Richie.
I'm Little Matt.
And here in the 500 Section Lounge, we are 3 dads who host a family-friendly weekly podcast.
Yep, we laugh, we go on tangents, and we talk to great guests.
Tangents. I don't know what you're talking about with that. You know, there are gases leaking.
All right, okay.
Yeah, we have legendary conversations from sports to history and everything in between.
So be on the lookout for what we do next.
And always be there to
grab a listen.
All right, here for the third quarter, we want to switch over to social media. And we hinted that there was something that we were going to be touching on a little bit with Big Ten basketball and the NBA draft. So, Sam, what do we have?
You got to vote on Twitter, okay? Which of the 4 projected NBA lottery picks that we just talked about, we didn't even mention them all by name because we knew we had this. But there are 4 projected Big Ten players in the lottery that are to go in the lottery. Which one's going to be the best pro? All right. Your 4 choices are Johnny Davis from Wisconsin, Keegan Murray from Iowa, Jaden Ivey from Purdue, and Malachi Branham from Ohio State.
This is kind of a difficult one. It's difficult for me anyways. Yeah, I don't. What about you? Do you have a favorite here?
Well, there are 4 players here in 3 different positions, I think. Because isn't Johnny Davis, well, he's more of a shooting guard. He's not a point guard. So there's only, I guess there are 2 positions, but
yes.
Good Lord. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he played at Purdue, but I really like Jaden Ivey's game. He reminds me of John Morant, and John Morant is phenomenal. I think the Grizzlies win that series against the Warriors if they don't lose him. Because I think they lost at 4-2, right? If I'm correct. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure they won 2 games. Because they won one without Morant.
Beating the Warriors.
Yeah. That's who they lost to, correct?
That's right.
And they lost the series 4-2. They won one with Morant and one without Morant.
I don't think I can co-sign this one with you, Sam.
And that's fine. That's fine. I don't care. But my point is Ja Morant is a very influential and impactful player, and I see Jaden Ivey being a lot like that. And to me, I would say Jaden Ivey, but late to the party, but buying a stock in Branham. I really like Malachi Branham.
Interesting. See, where I go is really, I like Davis a lot, and he proved he can create and make tough shots. I'll stay
I've got
away
a little response when you finish with your pick on that.
Okay. I'll stay away a little bit from it just because defenders are going to be bigger. I'm not sure his pull-up is as effective in the NBA is kind of what I want to see there. But the guy I'm really looking to, besides Ivy, because Ivy stands out to me, it's Keegan Murray. I mean, this guy is long. He's athletic. He can do it all. He can hit from the outside. He drives in as well as anybody. He defends real well. I think Keegan Murray is absolutely an NBA player, and I think he's due for a very, very long NBA career.
I don't disagree with Murray, with your pick of Murray. He does everything, but I just having seen Branham play the couple of times that I remember actually watching just for him. He was a freshman. It was his first year in college, and there were spurts that he looked like he was going to take control of the floor, and anything that happens was happening because of him. Whether it be some guy hitting a three, it was going to be because he drove in, pulled the defense off, and he was able to kick it out. So I mean, like I don't disagree that Keegan Murray could be one of the to me the second best pro in this group of four, but I like Branham a little bit better. Now with Johnny Davis, this wasn't his first year this year.
Right.
And the projections had Wisconsin at number 10 with Johnny Davis on the roster.
Yep.
The fact that they won the Big Ten is a huge salute, and because of Johnny Davis. But is this the sign of him getting of better things to come, or was this the, oh my gosh, he's playing out of his mind and he will be formidable and a serviceable pro, but he's never going to be that guy that he was his last year at Wisconsin?
Right. And I think it gets just a little bit harder with the taller defenders.
Right.
Is the point I'm getting to.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. And I think for Johnny's, go ahead, doubt. Look what I did last year.
It's not even necessarily that I'm doubting him. I just need to see a little bit more proof until I say, yeah, I think he's going to be. So at this time, the jury's still out on Johnny Davis for me.
Okay.
Now, the reason why the jury's not out as much on Malachi Branham over Davis is because Branham was doing that as a freshman with no preconceived college experience. So therefore, I can give him a little bit more of a pass for his shortcomings because I think he's so young that he's going to develop. Now, Davis is what? Was he a junior?
Sophomore.
Okay, so he only had 1 year prior.
Yep.
Now, Branham could have, if he had stuck around Ohio State, he might have had the season style of Johnny Davis, but just on a better level.
And to your point, I mean, where you put a little stock in Branham, I think it's just easier to trust in these situations. People that have incredible athleticism and length, because like that's one of the biggest, hardest roadblocks when it comes to transitioning to that next level, is that you're going to be so out of place and you're having to find ways to make up for the lack of athleticism you might have compared to what it takes at the NBA level or the size. So I get it. And that's why I think, well, Davis is the smallest guy here, but
you can't develop length.
It didn't matter.
You can't develop length or height.
You can find ways to get around it, but that's harder to do.
Right.
And that's really the point I'm trying to land on.
Yep.
So, but okay, vote on Twitter.
Yeah, so my basic thing is I think from what I was hearing, maybe we both agree that Ivy's, in our opinion, Ivy's going to be the better pro of all these four.
I got him number 2.
Okay, you got him behind Murray.
So
you think the length and the ability to be taller
Keegan Murray
is what gives him the
I could see Keegan Murray being in the NBA for the next 12 years.
Yeah.
Because not only is it about the length, the athleticism, being able to hit the threes, drive, glide, and cover so much space in small steps, but he never makes the wrong play. Keegan Murray never
you just put him in a
makes the wrong play.
hole to where if he makes the wrong play, I'm going to pull it out and be like, what's this? What's
Tweet
this,
at me.
Dalton? What is this?
But
and then I'm going to force you to say, that's Keegan Murray making the wrong decision.
But he's incredibly cerebral on the floor, and he carries himself in such a way, like with making those intelligent plays, that you trust that he's going to have a long career because people are going to want him around because he's not hurting you. And that's Keegan Murray. So I think Murray's number one. I got Ivy 2. And boy, it gets hard for 3 and 4 for me. But we want to hear what everybody else has to say too. So vote on Twitter. Let us know.
Tell us where
what
we're
you all
wrong
think.
and dumb.
Speaking of us being wrong and dumb, Sam, let's go ahead and move to the fourth quarter where we'll bring all of you our own headlines for this week's show.
I guess we can do that. You got to give me a second to take these little banners off.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll flip us over there. Okay.
All right. Time for the headlines. And as always, we start with Sam Sprunger and the Sam Sentinel.
Yeah. Well, mine is a, it's not one that you would necessarily, I guess, think of me, I guess. I don't know. So I'm looking at the list of top 25 basketball coaches in the NCAA right now. Okay. You got Bill 24/7 Sports. This is their top 25 list. You've got Bill Self number 1, Calipari number 2, Scott Drew number 3, Mark Few number 4, and I'm going through until I hit the one that I want to talk about right now. So
okay.
Tom Izzo number 5, Tony Bennett number 6, Eric Musselman number 7, Kelvin Sampson number 8, Hubert Davis number 9, and John Shire number 10. I have a problem with 24/7 Sports because John Shire has not coached a basketball game yet in his coaching career, and they already have him the 10th best coach in the country. Now, if you're going by only recruiting, let's hold up yet. He still hasn't coached a game yet. Okay, filling in for Coach K because he was sick or whatever, that to me does not count. That's not and yes, it is your program and he's finishing out his string and you are technically the head coach of the program, but nobody is coach over Coach K. So you're not the coach yet. I don't know how. And this is not a knock on John Shire in any way, shape, or form, because he may be fabulous, but you are putting a ton of pressure on the man who is stepping into the program after arguably the greatest coach in college basketball ever to coach a game has decided he's done coaching. They had Matt Painter at number 19 overall. And this is a little bit of my homerism, but let's look at all-time Big Ten wins. He's number 5 behind Tom Izzo, Bob Knight, Gene Cady, and Lou Henson. Matt Painter's number 5, and he is 9 slots below a guy who hasn't coached a single game yet. I don't buy it. Let's do better on our actual rankings. And they're not power rankings. They're not saying this will change off and on. This is where we've got them rated at this time in history, and I don't understand how that can happen. Let's give the guy some time to get his feet wet and to actually get into the grind. And like I said, he may go undefeated and he may win the national title next year, and for the first undefeated season since IU did it in 1976. A, still doesn't make him the best coach in the world, but B, then you can at least start having a conversation of, is he a top 10 coach in the country at this time? There are great coaches coaching. Let's keep John Shire out of it until he actually does his job. That's the Sam Sentinel. I'm a little perturbed at it, but you know what? And like I said, it's not me discounting what John Shire could be or is as a person. I don't know him, so you can't attest to that. But my point
It's just
is
earn it.
Yeah,
Earn
let him earn it, and
Yep.
he very well may.
Yep.
Just give him time to do it. Now if he struggles this year, oh well, you were supposed to be. He was in the top 10. How? Okay, Scott Frost at Nebraska was supposed to be a dynamite move at Nebraska. He hasn't panned out yet, but good Lord, you didn't put him in the top. But he also had head coaching experience prior to coming to Nebraska.
And a national championship at UCF. I mean,
Yeah, they got I consider him the national champion. Yeah. They were undefeated.
It's true. It's true.
Anyways, go ahead, Dalton. I know that I've complained. I do a lot of complaining. I got to find a feel-good story for next week, I think.
Okay, good enough. Good enough. Well, mine's not so much a feel-good. It's more deflating here with the Dalton Daily. Because, we talk about some of the traditions in Big Ten, right? And we talked about some of those games that really mattered, the trophy games. Traditions kind of make the world go round in Big Ten sports. Everybody loves the traditions. And in Lincoln, Nebraska,
think you might be doing the one that I was almost doing here. Go ahead.
I'm going to guess so.
Interrupt.
You brought up Nebraska and Scott Frost just a little bit ago. In Lincoln this next year, you will not see the red balloons released after the first touchdown. One of the great traditions in Lincoln.
See how close my fingers are? That's how close I was to doing that.
There is a global helium shortage. So the Nebraska athletic director and former Cornhusker football player, Trev Alberts, has announced that this upcoming year, that tradition will be suspended in Nebraska. And fans, there's quite a few that are rather unhappy with the move. I'm not really sure what all you do in this situation. I haven't really dug that much into all the different layers of this, but nonetheless, it's a bummer to see traditions kind of wean off a little bit, even though this one might come back in the following season. But nonetheless, I thought it was interesting to bring to the table here.
I can remember Trev Alberts playing at Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. And the fact that he's the athletic director. I think he actually was drafted by the Colts on the team that Jim Harbaugh played on. Jim Harbaugh was captain comeback, and I think Alberts was drafted to that team. Yeah, I saw that after the first touchdown of the first home game of the season, right? Is where they
I think it's every home game.
Oh, is it every home game? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I misread it. I thought it was the first one of the season, but it's every home game. Yeah, they can't. They're talking about ways to be able to digitally do it or something like that. And there were people that were already petitioning that they didn't want it to be done anyways because animals don't know that that's not food and they choke on the balloons or kids see them or whatever. I get it.
There's a lot of layers, like I said, and we don't necessarily I wasn't prepared to really go through all those layers, but
you said ending a tradition. Doctors used to smoke in the examination room, so
I'm not sure the balloons and the helium is as bad for people as ashes in there.
You are absolutely right, but you're talking about tradition, and I'm like, traditionally, doctors used to have a cigarette going, yeah, looks like you got pneumonia. Yeah,
let's clog this up here.
Yeah, as they're blowing Pall Mall unfiltered smoke into the patient's lungs.
But anyways, that's the Dalton Daily. Thought that was a little fun to bring. But before we get out of here, Sam, why don't you let the folks know where they can find us?
Yeah, well, if you look at the I went with the old layover today, overlay, whatever it's called. I actually forgot and clicked the wrong one. But you can see the 3 ways that we've got on our little overlay that show you how to get a hold of us. We can on Twitter, Facebook, find us at abpodsmedia.com. You can listen to us anywhere you can find your podcasts. You can watch us on ASAP Network when we stream Fridays at 8:45-ish. Most Fridays it's 8:45. Sometimes it varies, but
yeah, right.
8:45 on Fridays. You'll see us on ASAP Network. Then also, if you want to watch it before the stream or after the stream, and you can't catch the restream, catch us on Spotify. Our video shows are up there. Also, go find us on Good Pods if you don't have a place that you want to listen to us. You know, you have to listen to the Big 10 plus 4, but you don't have a place that you necessarily go to all the time, but you listen on your phone. Just download the Good Pods app and listen to us there. Rate us.
We're just about everywhere. So
tell us how stupid we are.
So we quit telling ourselves. That's right. The play. But nonetheless, I do want to thank everybody for tuning in for another edition of Big 10 plus 4 here. And of course, that's Sam Sprunger. I'm Dalton Shetler. Until next week, so long.
See you later.